So, I mean, for you personally, going back to this world, how different or similar did it feel kind of 10 years on from finishing that trilogy?
Well, a lot of it was different, and it's always a challenge to write a script and to tell a new story, and largely with new characters. And so that was, that wasn't really assisted in any way by having done the Lord of the Rings, because the challenges are always there with each new film that you make. But it was nice to walk on set and have a lot of familiar friends around. Ian McKellen as Gandalf the Grey, and a lot of the crew as well we deliberately brought back as many of the Lord of the Rings senior crew members as we possibly could, so that, because I'm one of those guys that really wants to have a unity between the stories. Even though the Lord of the Rings was written, much later than the Hobbit, and it sort of grew into a much more adult, apocalyptic kind of story. I want to make sure that one day when people have got the 6 movies in a box set, that they can start at the beginning, and it starts with the more lighter, kind of calm before the storm feeling of the Hobbit, a bit more humour, and then it sort of grows into the Lord of the Rings. So that synergy is very important to me.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the decision to have Ian Holm and Elijah Wood at the start of this film as well, to create that sort of, well, it's a bookend, but it's also it justifies the line from Gandalf where he says, "You won't come out of this the same." I mean, was that part of the reason for that as well?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I was sort of wanting to do something like that to help people, because I thought that there's going to be a lot of people that come to see The Hobbit that won't necessarily have read the book, but they will have seen The Lord of the Rings either in the cinemas, or younger people seen it on DVD, and that I wanted something visually and from the storytelling to sort of help orientate people as to how The Hobbit fits into the later story. Because of course we're in that situation where people have seen the second of the trilogies, but they haven't seen the first one yet. So just to say, okay, well, here's the day that Gandalf arrives in the Shire from the Fellowship of the Ring. Now we're going to work our way back from that, and we're going to start the story where it really begins.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, the idea about Bilbo kind of changing over the course, I mean, you begin to see it a little bit in this film, but is it fair to say that he's going to get, I mean, you will see what he's like in Fellowship. He's a lot kind of darker and not entirely stable. I mean, is that something you're going to see?
Well, some of that is obviously due to the effects of the ring on him too, and there's that 60-year period between the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings where that just him being the ring bearer, the keeper of the ring during that time, does affect him quite a lot. But Bilbo's journey is interesting because, one, he's got to find his courage, he's got to find his sort of ability to be courageous and to help the dwarves, but also he's got relationships which in this first film are starting to develop with Thorin Oakenshield and with Gandalf to some degree, and those relationships get a little bit more complicated as the story goes on, which is where a lot of the development of Bilbo will take place.
Yeah, sure. And the decision to make 3 films, I think we only heard about it maybe 5 months ago. But
so did we.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So did we.
Wasn't sure. And that was obviously, I mean, I know you've said it's just because you realised, A, you had too much story, and B, there were things that were in the appendices that should have been.
It wasn't. It was almost not about having what we had shot. It was about what we hadn't shot, because we were coming towards the end of the shoot, and Philippa Boyens and Fran Walsh and I, we write the screenplays, we were talking about the stuff in the appendices that we were never going to get to shoot, and wouldn't it be great if we could do this and that, and we sort of started to talk ourselves into this idea of if we were able to do more filming and get that stuff shot, how we'd sort of work it into this to this film, and it could become, go from 2 to 3 films if we did that. So the whole plan hinges on us shooting for another 10 or 12 weeks next year, because we need to shoot a lot more material to actually make it 3 films. But we've pitched it to the studio, we've written a treatment for it, and they like the idea, so they're supportive, so that's the plan.
Yeah. Cool. Well, it's my last one, but obviously I know casting Martin was tricky because his schedule originally wasn't going to allow for it and things. I mean, what was it about him that made you think, no, it has to be him? He's
a perfect Bilbo Baggins. He has that ability to be he's a very strong dramatic actor, but he has the ability to have wonderful comedic timing and sort of sense of satire and irony, which a lot of the humour from The Hobbit comes from his reacting to the situations he's in, and the sort of uncouth kind of group of dwarves that he's with, and that's where a lot of the charm and the humour comes from. And he just, I don't know, what is it about an actor? We knew even before we met Martin, just based on what we'd seen of him over the years in films and TV, we knew he'd be perfect. And there literally was never anyone else we had in mind for him. Never. I mean, he was by far, in a way, the best actor for this role.